Right, welcome back to our next lesson. So in our previous lesson, we had an overview whereby we were looking at the basic definitions and understandings of the 5 main parts of yoga. Can you remember what they were? The first one being Hatha Yoga is the science or the practice of balancing the body, cleansing and purifying the energy systems for the purpose of later on moving into Raja Yoga. Raja Yoga being defined by Patanjali as the king of the yogas or the royal road of yoga, consisting of 8 practices or the Ashtangasana, the limbs, the 8 limbs of yoga, the Ashtanga. We also covered Bhakti or devotional yoga, Karma Yoga, selfless service, Jnana Yoga, the yoga of intellectual study, as well as my mind's even gone blank now while I'm talking to you. Okay, yeah, those are the 5, huh? Hatha, Raja, Karma, Bhakti, and Jnana. We've got them. So I just want you to have a look at I'm going to open up to your manual over here. In the previous lesson that we went over, I gave you some basic overviews on each of the parts and a nice simplistic definition. And then I showed you the YouTube video that I suggest that you go and watch to understand a little bit more about it. Don't worry about these breathing techniques yet, the Kapalabhati. Stick with your 3-fold yogic breath and your Nadi Shuddhi or Nadi Shodhana breathing. All right, as always, with your meditations and reflections, I ask please that you record them on your phone and play them back to yourself so that you can A, listen to your own voice, and B, get the benefits from the meditation using the sound of your own guided voice. Later on, I will consider adding these to the course using my voice as guidance. But for now, I really want you to be able to do it yourself and practice on a loved one as well. Following on from that definition in lesson 4, we've got lesson 5, which goes much more in depth into the understanding of Bhakti Yoga. There's a meditation or reflection and some journal entry questions that I want you to please look at over there as well and write down in your notebook. Lesson 6 goes into Karma Yoga and a nice deep understanding of selfless service, along with some meditations and reflections there. Excuse me, these meditations and reflections that we do in our course content are there for you to ensure that you actually get the benefit of this course material embodied without just intellectually studying, getting it into the memory, and then 6 months later forgetting all these words. We want to embody the teachings, the practice of the yoga, because when we teach yoga, we can't only do it from a place of intellectual understanding, but we have to embody it physically and through the heart space as well. So please do these meditations and reflection exercises. Lesson 7 goes into a deeper understanding of Jnana Yoga and a little bit more about that. That's for those of you who are more intellectually in the pursuit of knowledge, whereas in Bhakti was the devotional or the heart-based pursuit of wisdom. Finally, the lesson 8, this is what we're going to be focusing on in this video now, the Raja Yoga as taught by Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, also known as Ashtanga Yoga, not to be confused with the 3 series that many people know as Ashtanga Yoga, primary, secondary, and tertiary series. If you know what I'm talking about, then you'll understand. If you have no idea what I'm talking about with that, then just please rather shelve it so that you don't get confused. The Ashtanga that I'm referring to here is the 8-fold path as taught by Patanjali over 2,000 years ago, the royal path. So we're going to be going through the 8 limbs in this video and exploring in depth this journey. This path or this journey, the Sanskrit word pat, P-A-D, means road. And it's just the same as what we have in the English word path and the Afrikaans word pat. It is all rooted in the Proto-Indo-European language structure. So this pat, this road, this path of yoga, Patanjali defined as having 8 limbs, 8 arms. And I'm going to pull up an image for you that kind of gives a graphic representation of this journey. So you can see if you Google the 8 limbs of yoga, you'll see many different depictions of how it's laid out. There's one with a wheel, here's like a plant, there's ones with trees, which is nice, a nice depiction. If you think of the limb of a tree, that's a nice way to think of it as well. So you can go and find an image that works nicely for you. This is quite a cute one over here, if you can find a nice clear one. But the one that I will draw from the most today is this one here. And this is from the Art of Living Foundation. All right, so you can see that we've got these eight, how do we say? We're not going to say they're pit stops along the journey, because really the 8 limbs must work in a circular format. So although there's part 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8, and it is meant to be a journey, a progressive journey, starting at number 1, the yamas, 2, the niyamas, progressing all the way up to samadhi. We don't want to think of this just as a linear journey. We don't want to think that we start at A and we end up at Z, because what you'll realize through your yogic journey is that it works in cycles and cycles and cycles. So it's not about perfecting the asanas or the postures and then moving on to pranayama and then moving on to pratyahara and then. It's about us embodying them all. So we work with asana, we work with pranayama, pratyahara, meditation. Then a few years later, you realize you're going deeper into asana and pranayama and pratyahara and meditation. And so you're constantly spiraling. And it makes this a much more organic journey than thinking of it in the traditional linear, start at A, end at Z, and that's the end of the journey. Boom, number 8, samadhi, enlightenment, I'm done. It's not like that. That's not how it works. This is the spiritual journey, according to yoga, is not one that we just tick off our bucket list. It can take many lifetimes, many incarnations to follow this pursuit of the 8 limbs. Okay, so we're going to start with the yamas, which are the 5 social ethics, and then the niyamas, which are 5 personal practices. So let's open up onto lesson 8 on your manual. And we take it from here. All right, so at the time of the recording of this video, it's on page 46. The manual does change from year to year, but you'll see that it looks like this. It says the 8 limbs of yoga, and we're going to start with the yamas. Please also have your notebook ready so that you can make some notes and some personal reflections as we're going through. So the first of the 8 limbs of yoga is the word yama. The word yama means a restraint or a control. So immediately we think of this as something that we need to restrain ourselves to, or some aspect of ourselves that requires control. The 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas are the closest thing that we say that we could get to as almost having like a 10 commandments, except these are not commandments, they're not rules, they are guidelines for ethical and good living in the world. We don't believe in yoga that there's a heaven or a hell waiting to reward or punish us. We create our own state of heaven or hell according to our actions, as a result of our actions. This is what karma really means. Karma doesn't mean that the universe is punishing you or rewarding you. That means that if you plant rose seeds, you're going to get rose bushes. If you plant weeds, you're going to get weeds. If you plant joy and peace and love, you're going to get more joy and peace and love. If you sow the seeds of anger and discourse, you're going to reap that harvest. So karma really means that you are getting what you sow into the world. All right. So these yamas that we're going to be looking at over here, these are the ethical disciplines of yoga. And when we're going through them, you're going to think to yourself, well, this is what my mom or my dad or my granny would have taught me. And that's exactly the case. But we're also going to unpack them a little deeper. And so I want you to be creative in your understanding. Let us start with ahimsa. Okay, so write down in your notebook now, ahimsa. I'm going to open up the whiteboard because I'm probably going to want to make a few notes. Ahimsa. also known as non-violence. Okay, that's the easiest definition for ahimsa, non-violence. The Yamas. Now, when we think of non-violence, now normally if we were doing this in a class environment, I would ask everybody to give a little bit of their 2 cents. And so I really do invite you to pause the video and make your own notes. When we think of non-violence, the first thing that comes to us is the most obvious thing, you know, don't be physically violent. Don't go around punching people and abusing people and bullying people and harming others. So no behaviors that harm. This is a difficult one because everything that we do as human beings to some degree or another might lead in a ripple effect to the harm of something. But the whole purpose of our journey as yogis is not to be perfect. It's just to try our best to adhere to the ethics as close as we can. So every time I climb into my car, in that moment, my carbon footprint is harming the environment. And so it's almost impossible as a practitioner of yoga to completely not impact the world in a harmful way. I might walk through the road and step on a beetle, but my intention behind that, did I intend to harm that being, or did it happen as a result of my living? These are deep philosophical arguments that we could have many, many discussions on. But what we, just for the purpose of this course, trying to focus on is to limit behaviors that harm. But now that's not only the harming of other people, but it's the harming of the self as well. So perhaps you have patterns or habits in your life that harm you, maybe certain addictions, maybe certain negative thought patterns, maybe certain reliance upon substances that might not be for your physical highest good or your mental or emotional well-being. So these are behaviors that harm us. This might be excessive smoking, alcoholism, the excess use of recreational drugs, bad diets, lack of exercise, whatever it might be. We need to understand what are the behaviors that are harming ourselves. Maybe you want to even pause the video for a moment and take the opportunity to just write down in your notebook, and be honest with yourself, because no one's going to see this. What are the behaviors that I have that harm myself? And be honest with it. Maybe it's one that I had for many years and sometimes still relapse on is biting my fingernails. That's a form of self-harm. What else? What else do we do that we harm ourselves? What about not allowing ourselves enough time to rest? Not allowing ourselves enough time to regenerate the batteries, just go, 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 go all the time, because people confuse busyness with productivity. That's a way that we can harm ourselves. What about not putting our priorities on the top of the list, putting everybody else before ourselves? That's a way of self-harm. So I want you to think a little bit deeper than just the thought of pulling a gun out and shooting something. I want you to go a little bit more. I want you to go a little bit more in depth into the ways in which we harm ourselves. Start with that. And then second, we can look at the way we harm others. All right. How do we know? What are we doing when we say something hurtful to somebody? That is a way of harming another person. When we disregard their needs or their personal safety. Okay, so there are many, many ways that we can harm others and ourselves. So I'm going to put there self and others, because at the moment, one thing that I'm noticing in this quote unquote spiritual community or the world is that there's a trend to selfishness, and everyone's just focusing on their needs and forgetting that we are just one drop in an ocean, and we are a part of a collective. So that's another important aspect of the yoga. What does yoga mean? Union. So it's not just your union of body, mind, and soul, but how do you join and connect to the greater, the community, the tribe, the family, the town that you're living in, the city, the country? That's another aspect of what we must look at. So we've got no behaviors that harm. This is one of, and then other forms of violence. Let's just say here, violence. It could be verbal, mental, emotional, physical. What about if you don't allow somebody to have their own beliefs or their own points of view, and you shut them down? That's a form of emotional or psychological or verbal violence. So we're always trying our best. We don't always get it right. That's not the point. And I'm not a preacher, I'm a teacher. So I'm not here sitting on an ivory tower. I'm a very human being. I'm not a guru, I'm not a saint. I don't profess to be anything more than just a human being trying his best to live a good life. If you're looking for a guru, or you're looking for a master or a saint, you're not going to find it here. But I suggest, rather than looking outside of yourself, you turn within and look for that self-mastery. Ahimsa is one of the other main reasons why yogis, very often, people who walk this path, tend to end up living a vegetarian life. Again, it is outside of the scope of this course to tell people what to eat. And in fact, I'm not interested in telling people what they can or should eat. That's, again, a form of violence, imposing my beliefs or thoughts onto someone else. But because vegetarianism is a 1,000-year-old tradition in the yoga school, I'm definitely going to inform you as to why we do what we do. So vegetarian life leads us to causing a little bit of less harm in the world, a little bit of less violence in the world. As I said, we can't get it right 1,000% of the time, but we can do the best that we can do. So this is one of the reasons why we tend to do this. Yoga philosophy teaches that whatever we consume, whether it's food or information, we become that which we consume. So if we consume bad information and bad news, we start to embody that. If we consume negative thoughts, negative patterns, negative behaviors, start to be a result of that. And the same thing when we consume food that is harvested through violence, because there's nothing peaceful about the process of taking another creature's life. There is a lot of pain and a lot of fear, and we as yogis try to eliminate the intaking of that into our bodies. All right, so you make a few more notes there in your journal on ahimsa, non-violence, and how you feel you would like to bring the yama of ahimsa into your personal life. Please pause the video and then we can take a look at the next one. All right, so by now you would have had a look at ahimsa and made your own notes on this. The next one we're going to be looking at is satya or satyam. All right, and I'm going to compare a few. So, okay, what I don't agree with in this picture over here is it says ahimsa equals kindness. Probably, but the true definition, the linguistic definition of ahimsa means non-violence. Satya or satyam translates as truthfulness. So let's pull out the whiteboard and have a look. So satya or satyam, also where we get the mantra sat. Sometimes if you do Kundalini yoga, the other word sat nam, it means true name. So sat. I repeat the Sanskrit sometimes with you guys so that you can start to understand it and embody the sounds. So this means truthfulness, honesty. All right. So, of course, what are the first things that come to mind? You know, maybe mommy or grandpa or whatever said, don't lie, tell the truth. And some people were raised on the stories of the little boy who cried wolf. And we learn and we study what it means to be honest. But do we really understand what is satya? Do we really understand what is truth and honesty? Perhaps it's more than just not lying, quote unquote. Okay, truthfulness or honesty doesn't mean not lying. That's a part of it. When we don't lie, then we're truthful or honest. But the Yama doesn't say don't lie. It says be true, be honest. And there's a different angle at this. This is a different slant. So let's start with the self, and then we can branch it out to others. So what does it mean to be honest or true to yourself? What does that actually mean? I wish we could have this discussion together, you and I, but the closest we can do for now is for you to journal it, and then we can chat about it in our future in-person sessions. What does it mean to be true to yourself? What does it mean to be honest with yourself? So I'm going to say that, true to or honest with. What if you are in a terrible relationship and you are lying to yourself by saying that, you know, if you just stay in this relationship, you will be safe? Or, you know, we come up with all different kinds of excuses. Or maybe you say, we delude ourselves to believe that we're happy in this job or this environment or the circumstance that we're in. So are we being honest with ourselves? Sometimes we delude or deceive ourselves because it means that we're going to be, it won't hurt as much. Lying or self-deception is a lot more, sorry, my light is jumping a little bit, so I'm just going to fix it, is a lot easier sometimes to handle than the truth. So ask yourself, where are you